Usually, the horror market is dominated by American-produced films. Even classic Italian films or Japanese horror films are often remade by American filmmakers and more commonly recognized by modern audiences. However, these foreign films are not to be discounted, as many are truly terrifying and feature unique perspectives. Before we begin, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Every new sub helps us achieve our goal and keeps us motivated to create new content. With that being said, I'm your host, Jamie, and here are 10 of the best Australian horror films. Number 1, Razorback. 1984's Razorback was director Russell Mulcahy's directorial debut before he would gain international attention with the cult hit Highlander in 1986. Prior to Razorback, he primarily did music videos and worked with iconic musicians, like Sir Elton John. Razorback is a giant monster movie that features a truck-sized wild boar, or Razorback. It's based on Peter Brennan's 1981 novel. Despite what Disney would have you believe, a wild boar isn't mild-mannered like the beloved puma. They are aggressive, territorial, and would gore you with no hesitation. Now imagine one the size of a Subaru Forester running around the outback. Razorbacks are also omnivores, known to eat small animals. And humans are small animals compared to the one in this film. Razorback begins in tragedy while grandfather, Jake Cullen, is a kangaroo hunter, is watching over his grandson. A creature that moves like a tank slams through Jake's ranch, taking the child with it, or killing and eating it. Cut to 2 years later, and Jake is a Razorback hunter. The attacks begin again as a U.S. journalist comes to the outback to investigate the wildlife. Razorback is a fun film with some nice twists and turns. It also looks exceptional, often very visually in the vein of Mad Max. Turns out, the director of photography, Dean Semler, also worked on Mad Max 2: Road Warrior. You can stream at Razorback on Apple TV, Google Play, or Fandango. Number 2, Wolf Creek. With Saw becoming a cultural phenomenon in 2004 and the slasher genre moving away from the smooth camera work, anamorphic lenses, and snark of the Scream era, mainstream horror experienced a resurgence of the low-budget, relentlessly brutal films like those of the 70s and early 80s. Only this time, we were in a digital era of film and had come extremely far in practical gore effects. 2005's Wolf Creek was one of the earlier films of the Saw torture porn era. And much like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it was advertised as based on a true story, which it sort of was, as it took inspiration from the murders of Ivan Milat. Milat would lure backpackers traveling the outback, knock them out, and brutally murder them by repeatedly stabbing their chest cavity and whatnot. In Wolf Creek, 3 friends, 2 British and 1 Australian, are also backpackers venturing through Australia. They land in Wolf Creek National Park as their car breaks down. A man named Mick Taylor comes across them, offering to help them repair their car. All these plot elements are your typical slasher fare, except they come with high contrasts, digital grit, and rapid-fire editing. Wolf Creek is intense and exceptionally brutal. The campiness is non-existent, and the torture is real. Once the group is captured, it's a high adrenaline attempt at survival. So experience it on Prime, Tubi, Freebie, Pluto, Fubu, Fandango, or Google Play. Number 3, Talk to Me. Talk to Me is equal parts of psychological horror and supernatural horror. It entertains as much as it digs into the viewer's psyche. The story itself revolves around a group of Australian teens who have come across a severed hand of a psychic to which they've discovered they can directly communicate with the dead. The opening sequence is a single track shot, not dissimilar to the opening of Halloween, and it sets off the film in a shocking manner in an event that connects to the plot later on. The cast is quite charismatic with plenty of chemistry. Talk to Me grounds the characters, fashioning likability and relatability early on. This helps the viewers sympathize because, as with normal people, the characters are revealed to be messy and make poor choices as the movie progresses. There was one scene in particular, more than halfway through the film, that I thought the characters handled a situation so poorly that it soured my experience. But as I have contemplated the film, I realized that was the point. It was frustrating and uncomfortably realistic. These narrative choices are all done with intention, as the film deals with coping with grief and parallels drug addiction in a unique way. Talk to Me skillfully and purposefully uses cinematography to convey a mood or theme before it comes out in action or exposition. Talk to Me subverts expectations as much as it uses tropes, but as the tropes are used effectively and the unexpected is fun and exciting, it makes for an entertaining, emotional, and sometimes unnerving film. You can watch it on Fubo, Sling, Prime, Google Play, or Fandango. Number 4, Lake Mungo. Lake Mungo is a supernatural mockumentary from 2008. Director Joel Anderson absolutely nails this documentary structure and style. While it definitely incorporates found footage elements, you get a nice mixture of professional-looking interviews and establishing shots accompanied by old photos and camera footage. Lake Mungo follows the mysterious disappearance of young Alice, who was believed to have drowned in a lake. The family of Alice begins to experience paranormal occurrences. One of the advantages to the documentary approach to fiction is it gets away with telling a somber, dramatic story basically through exposition. It was nice to see the mockumentary style in a different genre other than comedy, which is what most people associate it with thanks to films like This Is Spinal Tap or hit shows like The Office. Although keeping with authenticity, Lake Mungo was entirely improvised, showcasing the possibilities of the art of dramatic improv. The verisimilitude of real photos and videos is far more chilling than most of what Hollywood cooks up with all the bells and whistles. So be sure to watch Lake Mungo on Prime, Google Play, or Fandango. Number 5, The Babadook. Jenna Ortega's character, Tara, in 2022's Scream, aka Scream 5, said it best. The Babadook is a brilliant mediation on motherhood and grief. Jennifer Kent's 2014 psychological horror film, The Babadook, has had quite the influence over the last decade, as it was one of the early films to kick off the resurgence in what has been now dubbed elevated horror. The film does involve a grieving mother, Amelia Vanek, played poignantly by Essie Davis. She's tragically lost her husband and now has to take care of her troubled young son, who doesn't quite know how to cope with his father's loss. Amelia discovers that she has a book called The Babadook, which contains a haunting creature called the Babadook, involved in an increasingly disturbing story. While reading it to her son, she thinks it's too frightening, but he's intrigued. The Babadook seems to leave the book and try to take Amelia's son. I'm gonna say it, but the kid in here got on my fucking nerves, and I need to know if others felt the same way or if I'm a bad person. Regardless, the film blurs the line as to whether the mother literally or metaphorically manifested the creature, as it is a representation of her anxiety and depression. The creature itself is unnerving, giving off a very German expressionistic vibes, which does match the psychology of the film. The sound design for the Babadook gets under your skin as the creature speaks out its name in a very chilling manner, like I'd imagine a real-life demented Pokemon would. The animation for the story within a story is hair-raisingly gorgeous, and the whole film aesthetic is gothic. I definitely recommend checking The Babadook out on Philo, Pluto, Plex, AMC Plus, Prime, Google Play, Fandango, or Sling. Number 6. The Tunnel. 2011's The Tunnel is a post-paranormal activity found footage film that's cinematic approach is similar to that of Lake Mungo. What the audience is supposed to be viewing are police tapes from 2007 regarding an investigation that ended in a 911 call. But a lot of it is documentary-style tapes. So, The Tunnel uses footage from different kinds of cameras of varying professional qualities. The Tunnel revolves around an investigative journalist and her crew who catch wind of homeless people mysteriously disappearing in Sydney, Australia. Many of the homeless population live in an abandoned underground railway tunnels under Sydney CBD. Since the homeless population has been on the rise and will only get worse in places like the USA now, that they are now living under a fascist administration, the tunnel has eerie topicality. The Tunnel makes good use of its found footage and documentary elements as the grit, shaky cam, high contrast footage, and tight editing invoke tension and unease. Its narrative approach leaves a trail of breadcrumbs for audiences to both inform them as well as fuel the mystery. While its resolve is satisfying, in a narrative sense, it leaves things open-ended enough to fuel fan theories galore. You can watch it over on Shudder, Tubi, Sling, Google Play, Fandango, or Prime. Number 7. Body Melt. Director Philip Brophy made an experimental short film entitled Salt, Saliva, Sperm, and Sweat in 1988, and the Australian Film Communion saw that and said, "Hey, we'll finance your debut film." 1993's Body Melt. Brophy and Rod Bishop, who were the screenwriters for the film, were both former members of an art punk experimental group, Tisk Tisk Tisk. It's actually written out as right arrow, up arrow, right arrow. Seriously, look it up. This should all prepare you for the bizarre, body horror fever dream that is Body Melt. The story is set in Pebbles Court, Holmesville, a suburb in Melbourne, Australia. The people of this boisterous, eclectic suburb are being experimented on by a pharmaceutical company. The experiments are causing all kinds of different side effects, including hallucinations, strange dreams, and bodily, let's just say, destruction by what appears to be writhing worm-like things. And of course, grotesque bodily melting also occurs. Body Melt may be labeled as a horror sci-fi, but with its brightness, zaniness, and offbeat characters, it's borderline a twisted comedy. Even the bodily mutilation is over the top. While it didn't go over well with critics upon release, and I understand why, its loose narrative and awkward editing, it's certainly intriguing with some truly insane deaths. You can stream the film on Shudder, Prime, Google Play, or Fandango. Number 8. The Loved Ones. Australian filmmakers Sean Bryan's film, The Loved Ones, debuted at the Toronto Film Festival in 2009, only to achieve widespread critical acclaim. The film opens with Brent, played by Xavier Samuel, driving down a long open road with his father. The loved one conveys quite swiftly that the father and son are close, and the actors portraying them have tangible on-screen chemistry. Out of nowhere, a bloodied up man wanders into the middle of the road, causing Brent to swerve and crash into a tree. Cut to black, and the title card reads, 6 months later. We cut to Brent in high school. He is asked to the dance by a seemingly mild-mannered, soft-spoken girl, Lola, where he declines and tells her he's going with someone else. We learn through context that Brent is not some angsty teen, but coping with the loss of his father who died in the car crash. Brent recklessly goes rock climbing up a cliff, with no gear by the way. He slips and almost falls, but makes it to the top. He's clearly just trying to feel something. And just like that, he's kidnapped by a man who turns out to be Lola's father. And oh boy, does it get wild. Lola and her father are clinically batshit crazy. Robin Levy plays Lola so devilishly, committing to all the shock and cringe. She prepared for the role by request of the director that she studied Jeffrey Dahmer, studied Kathy Bates' performance in Misery, and watched Tarantino's filmography. Lola's father, just referred to as Daddy, played with a wide-eyed, twisted intensity by Jonathan Brumpton. And yes, all the craziness comes together in the end. Experience the thrilling Aussie insanity on Google Play, Fandango, or Prime. Number 9. Road Games. 1981's film Road Games stars Stacy Keach as Quid, the trucker transporting meat across the open roads of Australia. He's traveling with his pet dingo, which he has quite a rapport with too. My first introduction to Keach was the dark comedy sitcom Titus that ran for 3 seasons on Fox in the early 2000s. It was based around stand-up comedian Christopher Titus's own life experiences. Keach has screen presence and a touch of menace to him that is a quiet element in Road Games, as well as Titus, as you are questioning his motives as well. Keach apparently has always had a knack for darker comedy as well. Quid learns of a serial killer on the loose dismembering women. He decides to take matters into his own hands and track down the killer in the route he's been traveling. On the way, he picks up a couple of hitchhikers. One of them, Pamela, is played by Scream Queen Jamie Lee Curtis. Pamela, or just Hitch as Quid calls her, she becomes interested in tracking down said serial killer as well. Road Games is a consistently engaging thriller. London's global publication, Time Out, even referred to it as Hitchcockian, which is an apt description given the film's nail-biting tension, tight editing, and general finesse in camera work. The film is also a lot of fun because of its twists and turns, as well as the occasional oddball character Quid encounters. You can watch Road Games on Peacock, Tubi, Philo, Freevee, Sling, Google Play, Prime, and Fandango. Number 10. Next of Kin. Next of Kin is a 1982 psychological horror film directed by New Zealand-born filmmaker Tony Williams, not the drummer. The film follows protagonist Linda Stevens, played by Jackie Kieran, not the author. Linda inherits her estranged mother's estate, which houses a complex that she had converted into a retirement home. Linda starts getting more and more insight into her mother's life after discovering her diary. She begins having vivid dreams as well as eerie encounters, which seems to parallel her mother's. Next of Kin exercises quite an impressive array of track shots, as well as push and pull shots while zooming in and out. This creates the illusion that a space is extending or compressing. There's a scene in which this is used so effectively in a hallway, giving the impression that the old building appears to be alive. Next of Kin has been compared to The Shining in atmosphere and technical finesse. The film has also been highly praised by rabid film buff Quentin Tarantino. The film has quite the ethereal score as well, which highlights its frequently surreal nature. I personally think it looks great in HD too, indicating that not only was the transfer done right, but the original camera, lighting, film, stock was high quality. I recommend checking out Next of Kin on Tubi, Prime, Google Play, or Fandango. Thanks for checking out the video. Did we leave any films off the list? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to tap that bell icon to stay up to date with our latest releases. You can reach out to us on Twitter or X at StudiosFat, or chat with us on Discord, linked below. We're also now on Blue Sky. You can find us at studiosfat.bsky.social, which we'll also link below. If you're really enjoying our content and want to help support us, click that join button for exclusive content, rewards, and perks. Make sure to check out our very own merch store located at fatninja.shop. All proceeds go towards our next film project, so we greatly appreciate it. I've been your host, Jamie. Thanks again. See you in the next one.